B.
A CSU Ram, I said I'm proud to be.
A CSU Ram, I said I'm proud to be.
A CSU Ram, I said I'm proud to be.
Oh, welcome everybody to Monday Morning Cup of Coffee. I'm Steve Ivy here with co-host Marty Lenz after a rough weekend for a couple of the teams and a great weekend for a couple of others. Marty, how are you this morning?
I am well. It is Thanksgiving week, right? So time to maybe relax, reassess, stuff your gizzards full of food. And, as I say, are we there yet? Get to the next stage.
Yeah. Speaking of getting ready for Thanksgiving, my daughter came early. Her husband is a pilot for Delta, and he's out on the road. And she came early, and of course, she had the request for prime rib over the weekend. So I made a nice prime rib yesterday because she's not going to be with us for Christmas. So prime rib followed by turkey. I'm a happy guy. Of course, you had a trip to Boise that was. That had its moments, but certainly was a disappointment. Briefly, your thoughts on the game? A quick wrap on the game?
Yeah, well, I mean, the result not unexpected, and like we said, it's been a very tough, arduous, weird year for the Colorado State football team, and just another example of boy, there were moments like that. Boise go down and scores first, we come right back and score and think, hey man, is there a there, if you will? But just offensive struggles, just uneven offensive play. And there's a variety of reasons. There's just no margin for error. I know these young men are putting out max effort, but there's just not enough of them. And, when you're playing a team, and this is by Boise's metrics, a down year for them to some degree, but you're not going to be able to go up there and not be able to not play at 100% perfect level and come out with the win. I mean, we've never won there. We're 0-7 there now. And so it just shows the gap, honestly, between a Boise program. And we've seen it all year with teams. There's a gap between us, Boise, UNLV, who won't be in the conference moving forward, but there's a gap between us and them. And, we've got to close it significantly if we want to be where we aspire to be and believe we should be based on everything else that we have as a university.
Yeah, it was just one of those tough things, and I expected it to be that way. And as you mentioned, when Boise's having a down year, that doesn't mean they're a bad team. It just means they're having a little bit of a blip in their program. How was Boise overall for you? I'm just curious. I used to travel a lot there on business. I sent a text to you. It used to be so different back in the days, early days in the 80s. Before it really started taking off. I mean, there was just like nothing there. And then all of a sudden things turned around there in probably the late 80s. Did you enjoy your visit there?
I did. My wife had a client there, ironically, a potato operation. And so she had been there before and she said, I think you're going to like it. I think it's pretty nice. And, it's quaint. I mean, what is it? It's a little bit bigger than Fort Collins. So, I mean, but Fort Collins seems a little more vibrant. I'm not knocking Boise for that, but that Friday night we're out. It was nice. I mean, the food, the people were very, very lovely and seemed very appreciative to have people that come visit and spend time there. So no, it was actually a pretty neat place to hang out for a little bit. Went to Goldie's, had breakfast there. It's a great breakfast joint. And, it was actually, I say, aside from, the work that we're having to do, I mean, the visits have been very nice and very pleasant. No, not a bad place to visit and be at all. And I can see why it's grown exponentially because it seems like a very nice temperate place to live, probably a little less expensive too, decent lifestyle.
Yeah, we used to, the business trips toward the end got really, really good. We used to stay downtown at a place called the Grove Hotel, which was
That's where we
really
stayed.
nice.
Yes.
It's a beautiful hotel.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I'd get a room that was a suite with the outdoor area. They have suites that are on the that border to the hockey arena.
Right. The Idaho, what is it? The Steelhead, whatever, they play there. So
Yeah.
it is really cool. You walk in and like, there's the arena. Yeah. It's pretty neat.
And I'd have a room where I could walk out and sit in some seats and watch like adult hockey at night after going out to eat or whatever. And it was just a really, really comfortable place.
Yeah.
Aaron with a comment on the game. The outcome was expected. Hawk Tua was unexpected. We have to at least talk
Yeah.
about it a little bit. You from where you were sitting in the press box, you couldn't see what happened, right?
No, we saw. So let's start from that. Brian and I are up there, and we saw whatever little instance was going on there, and then we saw some interaction. And of course, I can't see anybody, spit a loogie from that high up. But then we see the coach for Boise and a couple other people going over there, and we see some activity on the sidelines. So, whatever happening in real time from our perspective, we couldn't see it. We caught word that the TV guys were all over it and hammering on it. Look, you can't do that. Darius Curry was 100% in the wrong in that. He's been suspended for that, for the last game, and who knows where that's going to lead from there. Who knows if he's going to be on the team next year. I know a lot of people were upset that coach didn't do something about it in real time. The only defense I can say is, in that moment, do you know everything that's going on? I think sometimes you do have to pump the brakes a little bit and say what happened, assess it, and then make the right call, which the university did and the football program did. But yeah, you can't, as a young person, you can't do that. Though at the same time, I hope, that this isn't something that everybody judges Darius Curry by moving forward. It was a bad mistake, a dumb move, a selfish move, an unprofessional move to do, but you shouldn't be judged by the worst thing you do in your life aside from murder and, horrible acts like that. That was bad. But I hope, I don't know if he's apologized, but I hope he learns from it. And I hope moving forward, that's not always going to be something that's at him. He's a young person in the heat of the moment and made a bad decision and a bad choice, a teachable moment for him.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit off air. We've all done stupid things when we were young, and I think sometimes we make this assumption because these young men are playing college football that they're not young. and if this is the worst thing he does in his life, he will have led a great life. But the thing that I'm really, really sensitive to, and I actually had my eyes opened by Coach Medved a few years ago, is how much, unfortunately, social media affects these players and how they get piled on. I think it was I'm not supportive of what he did, but you won't see me pile on or do anything like that, and I won't do it to an opponent either. Guys do stupid things, and I feel for him this morning because I guarantee you he's going to hear it, and it is a bit unfair. And as long as he accepts it, and as long as it's a teaching and learning moment, and I think that's how we have to look at it. So,
well, you're right, and to your point, just to take this another level, sometimes you see examples, bad ones set for you. Look, we've seen this happen in the NFL. I mean, I referenced before we got on the air about Bill Romanowski doing that, and then the player from the Philadelphia Eagles, the first or second game of the year before the game even started, did something like that. So I don't get it. I don't know it. This isn't necessarily an isolated incident that we've seen this, but it's wrong and it's gross. It's wrong, and it's an immature move. But having said that, Darius Curry is a young man. Hopefully he'll learn from it. And like I said, he was wrong. The punishment fits the crime. But at the same time, I hope that, it's a chance for him to learn from it and not be judged for it moving forward.
Yeah. Hey, before Justin, we're waiting for Justin Michael to come on. We knew Justin would be here about 8:20. He'll be on. He's a very, very busy man. We'll talk about that. Oh, he's just popped into the room in the back. But before we do, I wanna just do a shout out here. The shout out to the Rams women's hoops and volleyball. The volleyball team with two wins over the weekend to wrap up the number 2 seed behind an undefeated Utah State. So obviously very good there. But the women with another just great road win up at Oregon State, which is a very, very good women's basketball program, giving them 2 wins. Over
Pac-12 champs.
Well, it is, and it is important going into the Pac-12 next year. 2 road wins over two programs that are going to be at or near the top of the the new Pac-12 next year. Gonzaga and then Oregon State, and Ryan Williams has them cooking. Have you had a chance to watch them at all, or?
A little bit, just very much, but I'll share anecdotally a story. So as I was at the Fresno State game before I was part of the broadcast, but I was there. I was hanging out with Gary Ozello. You know Gary well. We were in the
Very
campus
well.
box, great chat. So Ryan and a couple of the young women from the team came up. Ryan is the nicest man in the world. I always love seeing him. I love chatting and learning about his program and hoops. And look, he's always bullish and supportive of his team, as he should be as a coach. But when I asked him, I to the side, I said, "Hey, how do you feel about this team?" He kind of had that little impish smile and says, he says, there's something special about this team. He says, I just feel, and again, he says that most of the time, but there was a little look in his eye of like, he knew he had a good chemistry, a good combo, a good mix. And I remember taking away, says, wow, he just secretly feels pretty excited and stoked. And then you see the results as like, he knows, and this is prior to them doing that road trip to South Dakota, about how excited they were to hang out and do some team bonding. So I got the sense from him in that moment. He says, hey, he thinks this team could be, have a special mix and an edge to them. And so that was neat to hear that. And then seeing the result made me feel like, okay, instinctually, he knew he's got something there.
The young lady they got from Indiana, Lexi Bargesser, has turned out to be a revelation. But I like the two sophomores, Carlson and Froby. They are technically not high major athletic types, but they are ballers. They really are. Two young ladies that really know how to play the game, and they fight like hell, and they're very enjoyable to watch. So shout out to them. I did reach out to the person we talked about last week about trying to get something going for the weekly show on the women's basketball team, but she's way too busy, so it's not going to work out. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's bring on our guest who's been in the background. This is somebody I'm so excited to have him, Justin Michael. Let's give him the spotlight here, gang. Justin, how are you this morning, man?
I'm good. I mean, I'd be lying. I've had more fun shows to prep for. So, I got a show coming up in a couple hours, and we get to talk about Hawk Tua and another blowout at Boise State, a tough showing against DU. But, it's one of those days. And like you said, at least the women's team is rolling. Nice start for them.
Yeah, it's Justin is a man of many hats, and it's really kind of fun to watch his development as a graduate of CSU, to watch him start with coverage primarily of CSU and really expand his coverage of CSU, but also adding the Colorado Avalanche into his umbrella of work, and it's fun to watch. I'm just glad you could join us. I want to get some closure on your thoughts on football. Given the fact that you have covered this team regularly for years, and for the spring, you've been with this particular team since the spring. Just your thoughts from a top level on what's going on this year.
I mean, the simplest way to put it is probably it's a year from hell. Anything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for this team over the last really calendar year. I mean, kind of going back to the bowl game debacle in Tucson last December, it's been tough. I mean, there were high hopes coming off of an 8-win season. There were a lot of people that poked holes in the results based on the quality of record, and I understood that, and it was kind of a big prove it year. And I don't know, to me, it feels like this team has underperformed more than any CSU team of my lifetime. I think there have been a lot of circumstances. I mean, once you fire your head coach and you're on your third offensive play caller and play 3-4 quarterbacks, it's obviously not going to be a recipe for success. But I think for this team to be as bad as they were, especially in September, was really a tough gut check. And I think it's what's led to a lot of discontentment amongst the fans. Is unlike the Adazio era, there were genuine expectations this year. So to potentially go 2-10, first 10 lost seasons since the late 80s. It's just kind of shocking. And to me, I don't know. It's jarring to think about how much more investment you've had in this program and athletics as a whole to now be sitting essentially in the exact same spot you were in back in 2010, 2011. It's just crazy to have missed this bad, especially given the financial commitment to these programs. It's not like we haven't tried.
Justin, it was a kick in the gut when we were talking about this on the air. And how's your dad, by the way? By the way, just so people know, I went to high school with Justin's dad. So that shows the age.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So hearkening back to that, we talked about this on the air. The last time that Colorado State had not won at least 3 games was 1988. That was the year I was playing. And we were, I think, 1-11 or 1-10 that year. I have that flipped with 87. But it was that is hard to see. Everything you said is right, Justin, because we talk about this all the time. All the other tools to succeed seem to be in place, but we have seemed to struggle. And I'll even say last year, even though last year was a good season, there were struggles within that last year too that maybe should have portended to what could be potential this season. But I'll also add this into too, and I know you've talked about this too, Justin. I mean, everybody deals with injuries, but this team has been decimated by injuries. But I'm curious if you have any reason or philosophy as to why maybe we've had so many more injuries than, say, other teams. Is that dumb luck, or is there something else that training wise or health wise that we need to know about?
I mean, I'm not an expert on the training aspect of it. I haven't seen anything that would be out of the ordinary to me or anything like that. But I will say that I think it's certainly something that you have to take a pretty big look in the mirror at this offseason to try and assess, well, what is the deal? I mean, do we have issues with turf quality, or are we not doing the right things? Do we not have guys doing the right things from, their own commitment? Are guys putting in the right time and the training room and doing everything you can from a recovery standpoint? They've got all the fancy equipment. They've got, no shortage of staff, but at the end of the day, it also kind of comes down to, are the guys making the right decisions and doing the little things as well? So I think it's probably a lot of things compounding. I'm sure there's probably an element of bad luck involved, but I also think that when it's this persistent of a problem, clearly something has to change, because you just can't sustain any type of success if you're missing, half of your initial 2 deep. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up with football. Obviously, this is more of a basketball show, and I want to talk hoops with Justin because he's got a good eye for hoops as well. But I want one quick thought from both of you can pipe into this. Do you have a favored type of hire for football, or are you hearing any rumors?
Go ahead, Marty.
I'll quickly say this. I mean, there's a lot of names flying around fast and furious. Look, I don't, because even in the coaching thing, I think it can be kind of a crapshoot, because I think when many of us saw Coach Norvell getting hired, I thought that was a good hire. I still don't even think it was a bad hire. I just think it didn't work out. So I don't know. I just want somebody that can come in and win. Pedigree is less important to me as opposed to somebody that can come in that can bring a level of success. Entertaining football is nice too. I'll take wins over the entertainment, but if you can be interesting and be a little exciting on offense and keep some of the defensive things we've done, because we're in the scheme of things, we're hurt. We're not all that bad defensively. We got some holes, but we're not that bad. We can improve that. That's all I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be a sexy pick. I just want somebody that can win.
Yeah, I think it's tough to balance. Like, ideally, they'd be highly competitive and entertaining and fun and all of those things, but I just want somebody who has a proven track record of player development, because I don't think a lack of talent has been the issue with CSU football over the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, if you go back, it's kind of absurd how many times the Rams have had a guy who at the very least was in the conversation to be the best offensive or defensive player in the league. They've had the Mo Camaras and Trey McBrides and all the receivers, and they've had talent at a lot of different positions. But when you look at the roster as a whole, I don't think guys consistently are leaving the program better than when they came in. And it's great if you're, recruiting high profile athletes, because I think Norvell's staff did a good job of that, of getting guys who had the tools, but those tools don't mean a whole lot if you're not, maximizing these players and finding ways to develop them. So that's kind of where I'm at. I lean more to the guy who has won at a small school despite, the obstacles, because I just think in modern college football, I don't know, like I think these Jason Eck types are kind of proving to be fruitful for programs of CSU size. So I like a Tim Polasek. Vigen would be intriguing to me. I probably lean Polasek out of those two. Colin Klein would be fun just given the storylines, but I think he lands the Oklahoma State gig based on kind of what I've heard. We'll see though. I do think we should get an answer here in the next week and a half or so.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be quick. So great discussion there, boys. But let's go on to hoops. Justin, what have you seen so far out of Ollie's first season?
I mean, coming off of a disappointing performance, no doubt, this was a landmine type loss that you really hope to avoid. I will say, I think DU is better than what their numbers currently show, and I think those numbers will even out. I think there's a chance by the time the season ends for them to be closer to at least the low 200s. I mean, it's still not going to be a good loss by any means, but it won't be, I don't think, what it is. I think this team offensively for most of the season to this point has probably exceeded preseason expectations just from an execution standpoint. I mean, to have as many guys contributing and the way they've shared the ball, I think all of that's been really encouraging. I think you maybe felt in this DU game for the first time the lack of a developed facilitator. I mean, Rex Steiner has done a good job of kind of being in that role this year, but I think he's more naturally a 2. I think JoJo's probably the best pure facilitator on the team, but he's got room to grow offensively, obviously. So I think that'll be interesting. DU switched everything 1 through 5. The Rams got really stagnant offensively. They did a better job in the second half of feeding the post and getting the line and then hitting those free throws when they got there. But I think the biggest takeaway to this point is this team has a ton of potential, but they have a lot of room to grow on the defensive side. I mean, what we saw against DU, it wasn't good enough. The effort I didn't feel like was consistent enough. Guys aren't fighting over screens. Some of that's probably communication and not having spent a ton of time together, but also I think defense largely kind of just comes down to, are you willing to bust your ass and put the effort in on that side of things? So I want to see a lot of growth on that side of the ball, especially over these next couple of weeks as they wrap up the non-conference slate.
I also think, Justin, I mean, DU in many ways is a trap game. They want to come up, they want to win. And I tip my hat to them for playing and hustling and doing that, realizing no one believes we're going to win, but we believe in ourselves to do it. And then, secondly, from your vantage point too, I never like to lose. But at the same time, is there an opportunity for the guys to look at this and reassess and saying, hey man, we just can't show up. We got to put the work in. We got to do the work, which I think they've done in the first 4 games. So I'm not slagging them for that, but saying, hey, we just can't show up and think we're going to do it. We've got to work our butts off. We're a lunch pail program and we got to continue to play like that.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I think it's a reflection point, right? Kind of like last November. I mean, they were 5-5 last November, so there were a lot more struggles than we've seen to this point. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have to figure it out defensively, because as encouraging as it's been on the offensive side, there are just going to be nights when the shots aren't falling, when you're struggling to get those same type of looks that you've been able to get. And how do you adjust? And you don't have a guy like Nick Clifford really at this point, who's that, we're putting the ball in your hands. We need you to go get some buckets, create something. I think they have guys who potentially have that skill set, very different from Neek's. I mean, Neek was so skilled with where he could score from all over the floor. But yeah, I think it's hopefully a moment of reflection for everybody. And I think it will be. I mean, it's such a good staff. They recruit high character kids. You could tell how pissed off, guys like Jorgensen were post game. Like I would be shocked if we didn't see a lot better effort against Virginia Tech. I don't think this team's going to be dominant defensively, but I think they're better than what we've seen to this point.
Yeah, I went to the Loyola game in the first half. They played very, very good defense in
Hmm.
the first half. There was a little bit of slippage in the second half, but the kind of the disconcerting thing to me in watching them defend is there never seems to be any kind of ball pressure on the perimeter, and other teams are allowed to basically run their offense at their tempo. And we are playing very, very slow games. We're playing very low possession games. And I think CSU will be better if the possessions are up near 70. The last two games have been 60 possession games, and the other team can just basically dictate what they want to do offensively. And I think the guards, I mentioned this on my post game show. I think they need to get their noses dirty. They're not being as tough on the ball. They're not fouling anybody on the perimeter, and sometimes you got to knock people around. And they're big and strong enough to do that. But that's just my thoughts, and I think we're going to say, Justin? What are you looking forward to with this battle for Atlantis? We start with Virginia Tech. Hopefully, get a stab at some other really good teams. But what are you looking for in terms of team development at the battle for Atlantis that starts on Wednesday night?
I'm intrigued to see what the offense looks like. It tends to be a little bit easier to produce the way the Rams did early in the season at home than it is, in a true road or even a neutral court setting. So how do you shoot the ball, I think, is going to be interesting to me. And then I want to see how some of these young guys kind of continue to work their way into the picture, because I think JoJo, McIver, and Jace Butler are quietly really important pieces of the puzzle for this team, especially with some of the stuff you're talking. I think those two guys are probably best suited to do some of the things you're talking about when it comes to putting more, pressure on the ball, defending the perimeter. I think, again, guys like Rex Steiner and Pasquarelli, they're better than they've shown to this point on that side of the ball, but they certainly were brought in to score. And I think Butler and I think McIver, who are both intriguing offensively in their own right, I just think they have a higher ceiling defensively. I think their feet are quicker. I just would like to see those guys kind of continue to be a bigger and bigger part of the equation here, because I think they're really, really exciting young pieces.
With the mix of teams that are in this tournament, Justin, do you get the sense we'll definitely get a better beat on where Colorado State stands in the hierarchy of college basketball based on the competition they're going to see in this tournament? We'll say, okay, now we kind of see where we're at. We see where we're good at. We see our deficiencies, and we can build upon that.
Yeah, I really think this MTE and then obviously the home game against CU are kind of the signature moments for you in the early portion of the schedule. There'll be quite a few of them in the conference slate, because you get to go to some really tough venues that are going to help your metrics, but obviously tough places to pull out a win. This is an opportunity to pick off some quality wins against good opponents, but not in a true road setting, which is always advantageous for you. And I think it's an opportunity to kind of put some respect back on your name, because they were the feel-good story for a while, and now I think they've kind of been grouped into that, down year for the Mountain West. It's Utah State and San Diego State and everybody else, and that's fair. The league hasn't exactly done a great job of bolstering its reputation, but
we didn't lose to a team that's campus though is in a freaking strip mall.
It's true. DU does have a great campus. I will give them that. But yeah, they've got an opportunity here, I think, to prove themselves, to put a little meat on the bones and juice that non-conference resume, because you don't want to be in a position where you have to win the Mountain West tournament to get in.
Yeah. So, hey, Marty, we got to let Justin go. He's got to get ready for a 11 o'clock live show where he'll talk about a lot of what we just talked about and even more in greater detail. Justin he's a great follow on X, by the way. I've got it on the banner, Justin T. Michael on X, but on YouTube at DNVR Sports. He does a great job with his live stuff as well. What more before Justin goes? Anything quick for him, Marty?
Just tell your dad I said hi, if you would.
Yeah, I will, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on. Anytime you guys want me on to talk hoops or or anything else. I'm always down. It's a blast.
Well,
You
I still owe Justin a dinner. I asked, we tried to get things worked out over the summer, and things got crazy for me, and it's all on me. I feel
We'll make
horrible,
it
but we
happen.
want to have you and your fiance over for dinner. We'll figure out a way to do it sometime, maybe over the winter, but I know you're so busy with the Avalanche too. So
And Justin,
anyway, Justin, thanks so much, man.
you do a great job, Justin. You are a great follow. And in this era where everybody has hot takes about everything, you're kind of like, hey, let's just pump our brakes a little bit. Let's write. Let's be thoughtful about it. You do a really good job of that. Thank you. You really do.
Thanks,
Quick comment
guys.
from my buddy Lee. Justin, enjoy those Avs.
9 in a row. They're a wagon, guys. They're an absolute wagon.
We'll see you later, bud.
Have a good day, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Sure.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. What a great young man.
He is.
He's really doing outstanding work with DNVR, with the focus on the Rams. And obviously his work has been appreciated for him to move into covering the Avs. And I don't know how much you've watched of when he's involved with the Avs, but his level of intelligence with hockey is good, but you referred to kind of his even demeanor.
Yeah.
He adds a lot to a fan channel in terms of his evenness. There's a high level of maturity, I think, out of Justin.
Well, because we live in this era of hot takes, and if it's not hyperbolic, it's not right. And and maybe it's because of the space I come from. It's like, hey man, let's just talk about the facts and the data, and let's not be too high or too low. Let's be consumable and intelligent and mature about the information. And that's what he does with sports, because that's not really an arena, a realm that feeds on that as much. It's more about those, hot takes and flash takes. And that's something, maybe it's my age, but I get tired of that. So I like to see people say, hey, here's thoughtful criticism, or here's thoughtful, praise about something going on. I just like that. It's just, to me, that's the old school of great, thoughtful writers, when they put things out that make you, be a little more contemplative about your art and your craft and about the realm you're covering.
Yeah, he's a journalist, he's as opposed to a clickbaiter, which is so much of what social media has become, and I appreciate that. I try and adhere to those kind of standards as well. I'm not into clickbaiting. I'm here to do one thing, and that's to focus on the CSU men's basketball program and provide as in-depth coverage as I can, and I get tremendous support doing that, and we're having fun doing it. I'm going to ask you, what are you looking for out of the Rams when they head to the Bahamas this starting Wednesday?
I want to see him. To me, this is an opportunity. Like we were talking about this before. I forget what tournament it was. Was it the Caribbean when Tim Miles took that team down there and they shocked everybody by winning the tournament? Now I'd love to see him win it. What I want to see is the Rams get back to what they were doing maybe those first 4 games. And I reference this because, those games will look better. Look, Cal Poly beat Utah over the weekend. In fact, we were talking about that just prior to CSU losing that tough one to DU. But I want to see what I saw early on. I also want to see from a team from CSU, can they forget about, do you have a short memory? Forget about, not for a bad loss and move forward and say, hey, that's in the past. Let's move forward. That's the maturity. I anticipate seeing that from the coaches and from the players. That's the big thing, is like that next level of competitiveness. And then, of course, you never want to look ahead, but I'm looking forward to next Saturday a lot. I think many of us, again, we'd say this, I'd swap a DU loss with a win over CU. 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. So those are the things that I'm looking for. But I believe it too, because I believe all good teams, sometimes struggle and have a bad loss or not a great showing, and that happens to elite basketball programs. CSU's not immune from that, and so I just want to see how they rebound from that.
Yeah. I have a comment here from Lee. With Booth and Jorgensen, Rams need to be an inside first offense. Let me address that, because there were so many good things that came out of the DU game. Of course, Rashawn Mbemba is not back up to game speed yet, but he did get some minutes, and he's a very, very important part of this team. He would have been starting ahead of Kyle Jorgensen, but the growth that we're seeing out of both Kyle and Carey Booth is really, really solid. Kyle, 27 points in the second half on his way to a career high 29. Carey with 18 and 10 rebounds, another double-double. The two of those guys were an amazing force, but that's because that's what DU was giving us. They were taking away all of the perimeter scoring out of Pasquarelli, Recksteiner, and they were having a hard time just getting any kind of open looks at three. It took CSU a while to really recognize that they had to basically go inside, and they did it in the first half. They didn't do it as smoothly. They did it better in the second half. It scored a lot easier. So I think that it was a good sign that they were able to adjust, and we saw that development. But I don't see CSU as an inside team. I don't see CSU as an outside team. I see them as a balanced team, and their scoring is balanced across all five positions. And so, while I think it's a good comment based on what happened on Friday night, and what they needed to do to win. I don't think that long term is the only way to go. I think the style is much more around balance that's going to lead them to be successful.
And I know we talked about this last week because we talked about this with Coach Shelton, but I'll ask you again. I mean, you never want to not have your best player on the court, the big strudel. But the fact that this has given Kyle a real chance to show what he can do, and he's shown what he could do. Steve, what do you think about playing both of them at the same time in certain key spots, of having, I call it the twin towers of what they had back in the day, having that big front line of guys that can, big bruisers, run some picks, create some space inside?
Now that's all along the lines of this comment. What do you think the starting five looks like when Mbemba is fully back? It's not the starting five. It's related to the combinations of players on the floor, because you're not going to pull Carey Booth out of the starting lineup.
Right. Yeah.
He's playing really, really well. His development has been unbelievable in the short time he's been at CSU, and we're seeing what's going on with him, and like I mentioned, Jorgensen, but Mbemba is a very important piece. And so we did see them together on the court, I think, for about a minute against DU, and there were nothing flashy, nothing great, nothing bad. Ali, I think we might see more and more of that, and you're only going to see more of that if we don't continue to get more out of Augie Kiadulis. And Augie's a really good player. Augie did not have a good game against DU. He had a couple of I'd categorize them as dumb fouls, unnecessary fouls, and so yes, so what do we think the starting five looks like? I don't think it'll change. I think Brashan will come off the bench. I don't see how you can send Kyle out of the starting lineup, but you'll see more and more of Rashawn, and I think you will see more and more of them together. It was a tough game on Friday night, and I was discouraged by the defensive. It's the effort. It's not the skill. It's not a talent issue. My thought was that they might have had one foot out the door on the airplane to the Bahamas. And that can happen with young people. You look at some of the upsets that took place over the weekend with teams traveling on Thanksgiving. That school is out. It's right before Thanksgiving. It happens a lot. That's why teams schedule a lot of lousy teams over Christmas break, is because they want to come back and play a game without having to play a really good opponent. They're kids, they're young, and you want them to be professionals. They're not, and
Right.
and so that's kind of what I saw. I think I saw a team that wasn't fully operating at 100%, and they took that game a little bit for granted and had their eyes looking ahead to the Bahamas.
And I didn't watch the game, but we talk about this all the time. I'll say it again: styles make for fights. Did DU have a style that is something that CSU will have to obviously adapt to at some point, but threw them off a little bit as well? Was it a stylistic difference that made it a little more difficult for the Rams?
I don't think it was a stylistic difference, Marty. I think it was a game plan thing, and their game plan was to take the threes away, to switch, as Justin mentioned. They switched at every position, 1 through 5. When that happens, that means you get the mismatches inside, and CSU wasn't as adept at recognizing those and moving the ball quickly in the first half. They were better in the second half, but it was DU's willingness to trade free throws for their offense. And the free throw, the number of free throws CSU shot, 45. There may have been more free throws shot this year, but in terms of a 60 possession game, 45 free throws is a lot. It was the highest. There's a statistic called free throw rate, which takes the number of free throws you shoot divided by the number of field goal attempts. And CSU shot 45 free throws and 39 field goals, a 1.112 free throw rate, the highest in the nation of any game this year. I looked it up, and it's not even close. I think there was one game maybe over 100, but it might have been in the 90s. DU was willing to trade free throws for their offense. And if you look at the defensive performance in a 60 possession game, if CSU played great defense, that you hold a team to 1 point per possession, you hold them to 60 points. If you play 1.1 points per possession, which is kind of decent defense, you hold them to 66. If you play mediocre defense, 1.2, you hold them to 72. You still win the game comfortably. CSU played, their defense was about 1.4 points per possession, and it was one of the worst games, one of the worst defensive games any team has played this year against anybody. It was a top 10 offensive game that DU played, and that's how bad the CSU defense was. So I don't think it was a stylistic difference. I think it was just a game plan. DU will not win a lot of games playing that way if they play that way the rest of the year, because they made some shots that were extraordinary. They won't make those kind of shots everywhere. And I think it was just one of those things. It was on the Rams and the way they played defense.
That's it. Yeah. Well, then it's teachable, it's learnable, it's coachable. You look at that in film study and say, that is exactly not how we do it defensively then, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, well, we've done our 40 minutes. It's been a great show again. Thank you everybody for being patient with us. We started late, basically to accommodate Justin. I didn't want to have to talk with Marty for 20 minutes, and only because we like having our guests here for 20 minutes. We don't like to talk too much, but then Marty had an issue this morning, and I had a little bit of a rough start to my morning, so it worked out really, really well. But thanks once again, Marty. We do need to get you your mug, man.
Wait, I'm just cycling the ones I have in my pantry. So
anyway, thanks again. Thank you everybody for joining us on Monday Morning Cup of Coffee. I'll be back on Wednesday night to do a post-game show following the CSU game against Virginia Tech. And then Thursday, Friday, I'm not sure when my shows will be because those are important days in my family. I might do a late show on Thursday just to stay awake after all the food. So anyway, Marty, thanks again. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family. I appreciate you, young man.
Thank you. I hope next time I'm on with you, we're talking about how we held on to the Ram Falcon Trophy. Just get that last win of the season for CSU football.
There you go. Have a great time on Friday as well.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody next Monday morning on Monday Cup of Coffee. Go Rams.
Go Rams.